Hey folks, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing games, I illustrate them, and I publish them online. And I've been focusing attention on creating this new supplement called Spelljammer Combat and Exploration. It's a deep dive into 5e mechanics for combat and exploration aboard ships using the new Spelljammer's Adventures in Space box set that Wizards of the Coast published in August 2022. Now, the box set was released with an adventure called Light as Araxis, which we've been converting to using these mechanics to demonstrate how you can use these mechanics instead of the box set that was provided for Light as Araxis or any other campaign adventure that you may want to create. But what's really important to note is that the box set that was released in August 2022, it's not really a campaign toolkit. It provides information needed to run the Light as Araxis adventure if you want to do so. But if you really want to run a campaign in Spelljammer, you really need to have a lot more information, which we invest 107 pages here to provide all those details needed to effectively be able to explore and have combat using ships in the Spelljammer environment of Wildspace and the Astral Sea. So one of the things that is useful in campaigns is weather systems. And so one of the hazards that we introduce into the document is Wildstorms. So Wildstorms, and there's Wildstorms have been around since 2nd edition, and there's probably a number of supplements on DMsGuild that have ideas for Wildstorms, but we're using the mechanics that we specifically built inside of this document to lean into those weather systems and how your ship can interact with them at different scales. See, one of the previous videos that we released, and I'll have a link to it down below, was how to have increments of distance over time. Wizards of the Coast presents spelljamming as you're either in combat moving 50 feet, basically 50 feet per round, or you're traveling through space between worlds at 100 million miles per day. And that could be broken down from per day to per hour, per minute, or even per round. And so what we do here is we look at different scales of storms that the DM can use to interact with the map that you're adventuring on. If you're working at a 100,000 mile scale because if you're inside of a tight cluster of moons or planets, then you might want to consider using a storm that scales at 100,000 miles or even just 10,000 miles so that it fits inside of the spaces that your characters are exploring during the adventure. So what we have here is, and this is just one of 107 pages with ideas for you to be able to flesh out and have more options available for you to be able to build your own campaigns. So we're going to look at storm sizes, the type of storms, and then the type of encounters you can have inside of those storms. So first thing we do is, the DM can always just make an arbitrary decision based on what's needed for the campaign, but you could also just randomize using a D4 just to random what size of storm that it is. And so as we've discussed previously in other episodes about occupying space, like a 150 foot ship occupies a single 500 foot space because it's smaller than 500 feet. But a 150 foot ship occupies a 3x3 space at the 50 foot scale because it's 150 feet long. That's divided by 50 is 3 spaces. So it'd be a 3x3 space, kind of like a huge sized creature at the 5 foot scale. A 150 foot vessel occupies a 3x3 space at the 50 foot scale. So too do storms occupy different scales of space that take different amounts of time to traverse. So looking here, we're seeing 10,000, 100,000, 1 million, and 10 million mile scales. Of course, a DM can decide to have a much larger storm if they so chose, if they wanted to have it encompass the entire system that the characters are exploring, for instance. You can do this. The larger the storm, the easier it is to notice. So we're looking at the DC is the, you have an orrery, and in this system, that orrery works like a radar that can pick up on large objects and other things that the players can notice, such as a Wildstorm system. So you're using your orrery, or if you're just looking with your eyes, depending on how far away it is, using the visibility table that we have in the exploration chapter up above, you'll know that the DC is determined by the scale of object that we're looking at. So a storm that is at the 10,000 mile scale has a DC of 25 to notice before you arrive at it. And the larger the storm, the easier it is for you to notice. If you notice it, that allows the ship to stop before entering the storm. If you don't notice it, you end up inside of it, and now you have to get out. So in this example here of, like, say, if we rolled a 3, it would be D10 plus 3 times 1 million miles. So, like, if we rolled let's say we rolled a 4, it'd be 7 million miles in scale. So it would occupy a 7 by 7 space at the 1 million mile scale. And if we notice it before we arrive, it would take a number of hours to circumnavigate it to avoid the storm altogether. But if we didn't notice it, suddenly we would find we could, it doesn't make much sense to say that we appear, like, we don't notice it until we're like 2 hours into the storm, because you've been flying into the storm for hours. But what could make sense is that the storm is moving, and as you arrive at the storm, it surrounds and envelops you, and suddenly you find yourself trapped inside of the storm, not necessarily knowing what's the fastest way out of it. Hence, a variable about how long does it take, or how far into the storm do you arrive. So it would take, if a ship is capable of traversing 100 million miles per day, and so that is roughly 5 million miles per hour. If you find yourself inside of, say, 7 million miles of space, it may only take a couple hours for you to find your way. Like, if you're 4 million miles in, it might only take an hour for you to get out. So you can use the distance that you're traveling per day to then factor how fast does it take for you to get out. Now, so once you're inside the system, now you have to deal with the conditions of what the system, what hazards it poses to you. So again, we have a D6 table here. If you roll 6, you can roll twice. You could then or you could, of course, choose any of these, or we may create another supplement that adds to this list of options, or there may be, like, second edition or other products that are out in the market that may offer other hazards that you want to incorporate. Be welcome. So here's just some of them. Abrasive. This one's fun. I like this one. So while traversing the storm, you have to reduce the maximum speed by a magnitude of 10, or the ship, siege weapons, and any crew on deck takes slashing damage each round. So if you find yourself, like, for example, we know a ship can travel at most 100 million miles per day. So that's roughly 5 million miles per hour. If you find yourself in one of these, in this 1 million miles scale, instead of traversing 5 million miles per hour, we now have to reduce our speed. Instead of 100 million miles per day, it gets reduced down to 10 million miles per day, which is effectively, what is that? It would be 1 million miles every 2 hours. So if we're 6 miles in, it would take 65, it would take 3 hours for us to get out. And if we decided to try to leave faster, it would be hours, and each round we would be taking damage because there's so much grit and particulate and abrasive material in that space that flying through it at a rapid speed causes it to cut at you like a hurricane blowing dust in, like a sandstorm or a haboob. So that's abrasive. There's distracting. I like distracting storms a lot. While traversing through the storm, checks to maintain concentration and focus are made with disadvantage. So when you take damage, you could lose concentration on a spell that you're maintaining, for example. So similar to that, while you're in this storm, if you have to make a concentration check, it will be at disadvantage because the storm, whether it's so loud or it's got all these pops of light or it creates a lot of turbulence, it's distracting. And in the astral, I love this, in the Astral Sea, add 1d6 days of travel time to reach your destination. So in a previous episode, and we'll have that episode linked down below, we were talking about how your familiarity with a location reduces the amount of time that it takes to travel from one location to the destination that you know well. If you have conflicting destinations among crew members on a ship, that can cause the amount of time that it takes to arrive at the intended destination. They could add time to it because there are conflicting views or opinions about where are we supposed to go. So we have mechanics up above about how to win that duel, and whoever wins that duel then has the ability to determine how long it takes to get there based on their familiarity with the location that they want to go to. But if you run across one of these distracting storms in the Astral Sea, you're not able to maintain focus on the destination that you want to arrive at, so it increases the amount of days it takes to get there. It's a fun little hazard to play with. And then there's things like freezing, which is you have it, your piloting checks and attack rolls are at disadvantage from freezing rain weighing down your ship. Lightning storms, it's every hour. There's a 2% chance for each 10 feet of space the ship occupies that the ship is struck by lightning, and it deals d4 times 10 lightning damage to the ship. If you have a 1 hour, so if your team decides, if you're like just an individual 5-foot space creature, like a medium-sized creature, drifting in this storm, that means you have a 1% chance every hour of being hit by lightning on your own. But the larger your ship is, the more likely it is that it's going to attract lightning damage. For example, a 250-foot hammerhead ship has a 50% chance per hour of being struck by lightning, while a 20-foot skiff, 20 feet divided by 10 feet, 2 times 2%, a 4% chance of being hit. And having it spaced out by an hour doesn't sound very frequently, but if you have somebody that is, you can take short rests. After you get hit by lightning, you can take a short rest to recover hit points in case somebody was damaged from that lightning attack. So it's possible for you to be traversing a lightning storm for days through a Wildspace system because you're going to have opportunities to take short rests and long rests during that travel time to be able to recuperate from taking damage from lightning if it were to occur. So then there's poisonous. Poisonous is really fun. So there's 3 degrees of air quality in a spelljamming ship. There's clean air, poison, fouled air, which is poisonous, and then deadly air, which is the oxygen supply from the air envelope has been completely exhausted. You're now suffocating. So poisonous ships, when first entering the storm and once at the beginning of, again, each hour, while traveling within, the pilot makes a Constitution saving throw to prevent the storm from fouling the ship's air envelope. So the pressure of the air is trying to enclose in on the air bubble that that your ship is being sustained with. And so it's the strength of the pilot to be able to resist that effect. And the larger the storm, the more difficult it is to resist that effect. And a fun little note here is that if the ship air is already foul, obviously this isn't going to have an effect on your ship at all. But if the ship air is deadly and you've ran out of air, diving into a poisonous gas cloud is at least going to give you poisoned air instead of no air. So that's a fun little option. Like a DM can lay that down as like a thing. Like one of the, like you could be narrating, like at the beginning of this episode, you've been traveling for so long, you're just about exhausted. But look, there's a dark cloud up ahead, and oh, you know that stuff is foul, but at least you're not going to die from it. And then maybe luring you into that cloud to save your life, maybe the DM knows this, that's what you're going to do. And so maybe the DM has an encounter plan for you inside of the storm. So creatures and objects can be encountered within or near the storm. Roll 1d20 and consult the table below. Roll 1d20. Roll or choose from the table below. Is that how I worded this? Hold on. Roll or choose the storm size from the table below. There we go. Roll or choose from the table below. So here's 20 results. It's a scale of 1 to 10, and then on 11 through 20, there's nothing. Again, this is just some inspiration. A DM that's running a campaign probably has an idea of what might already be in there, but if you're just doing a a hex crawl, and you're just randoming stuff up every day, then there's some fun stuff in here. Obviously, like air elementals protecting their lair. D10 drifting autonome soldiers with orders to attack any ship. Actually, in the campaign that I've been streaming, I've been streaming the development of an Eberron Spelljammer campaign where the characters are in command of a mining operation. And so the adventures that they have in the asteroid belts near Eberron is them encountering creatures and extracting ore from asteroids that are encoded with ore, and there's creatures inside of the layers. You can check out the streams of that. I'll have that for you guys linked down below as well. But in that setting, there are colonies of gargoyles that can live on or among these floating asteroids. Since gargoyles are stone, like earth elemental creatures, don't have to breathe. They can just drift inert for years until something comes close enough to draw their attention, and then they awaken, and then they fly in to attack your ship. Autognomes are kind of the same way. If in Eberron, autognomes would be like small-sized warforged. So if a Siren warlord had taken a slew of these autognomes and just dispersed them into a combat zone, they also can just drift inert for hundreds of years even, not knowing the war is already over, still having command to attack any ships that are within the vicinity. So when your ship comes by, suddenly it's being attacked by this swarm of autognome warriors that want to tear your ship apart, which could be a lot of fun to either have as a combat encounter or as a social encounter, trying to wake them up and free them from their programming so that they can become new allies to put aboard your ship as crewmates that could then operate your weapons, and you could have an envoy of warforged soldiers working with your team. You could have a ghost hunting the storm, waiting for a ship that's lost within, so it could be freed. Mephits, curious about new visitors. There could be murder comets hiding inside to set an ambush, knowing that this is a trade route and it's an opportunity to wreak havoc. Scabbers could be looking for a meal. Undead pirates seeking a new ship. They could be skeletons or vampires. There could be a ship graveyard trapped inside of there with a number of ships that are either already destroyed, most likely destroyed, or possibly with enough hit points left for you to be able to pull out. There could be an asteroid field in there occupying D10 squares, one scale smaller than the storm. So if we're in a 10,000 mile scale storm and you run across a pocket of asteroids, then they would be able to occupy, like, say, 1,000 miles. So you go into the storm and then you find a little cluster of asteroids that could also, like, it could have shelter, or it could also have, like, it could be the lair of a monster itself. You can use that to kickstart your next adventure if you wanted to. Or you could just roll again, and then duplicates results accumulate. So instead of like D4 ships, it might be 2D4 ships, or however large in scale you want it to be. Or you could mix and match it. You could have a ship graveyard with a bunch of undead pirates, or a ship graveyard that has a bunch of autognomes ready to attack the next ship that comes by. So you can mix and match these things together. And by giving, honestly, when you're building an encounter table, Wally DM had made this reference, that when you are creating an encounter, you don't want to just have what the creature is. You want to have some sort of a adjective and verb attached to them, so that you can inject some intention or obvious actions to be able to take place. Like for example, waiting with orders to attack a ship. You know what those gnomes are going to do. Waiting for the ghost haunting the storm, waiting for its ship lost within. These are all the curious methods. It doesn't mean they're automatically going to attack your ship. It means that they're interested in it. And if the team responds well, they might be able to get information from these methods, or even be able to ally them and help them be led through the storm to maybe a pocket of lost ships inside. It's like, hey, we found these ships. What's up with that? Teach us about ships. And then you make friends with methods. So this is just one page out of 107 that we have in this document. We're trying to build ideas and set some ground rules to make it easier for our DM to be able to take what Spelljammer is and homebrew with it, and to also lean in, like there's Wildstorms in the Light of Xeraxis adventure. So this provides us with a little bit more physics and information about how you can conduct a battle inside of a Wildstorm during that or any other adventure that you want. So that's what we're looking at today, guys. I will be publishing this adventure shortly. The book should be out in February 2024. I'm not sure how far in the future you are, but once it's released, we'll have a link to it down below on the DMs Guild. If you're here in the now with me and we're still building it, I stream 6 days a week and then publish a video like this on Sunday. So like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get notifications of the next ideas that we provide, and to get notification when I'm live, so you can see us doing all the painting on this. And of course, when it actually publishes on the DMs Guild, we'll be shouting from the rooftops to let everyone know. So thanks a lot for checking this stuff out, guys, and looking forward to catching up with you next time. Thanks a lot.